Are you searching for a deeper understanding of yourself and your place in the world? Do you yearn for more balance, more peace, and purpose in your life? Well, look no further than the Intuitive Revolution podcast, your trusted source for holistic insights and intuitive guidance. I'm your host, Alicia Farricielli, and I am ready to take you on a journey to inner peace and balanced well-being. Welcome back to the Intuitive Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Farricielli. Today, I have Megan Riley with me. She is a Tantra coach. We're going to learn so many cool stuff about just sexuality and femininity and how it ties into intuition. So welcome to the show, Megan.
Thank you so much, Alicia. Thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
So I have such fascinating guests that come on here, and I always preference, and I know when you were born, when you were 5, you're like, I'm never going to go into Tantra sexuality and all this stuff. So tell me how you got into doing what you're doing, helping the people you're helping now.
You know, it's funny, when I was 5, I wrote down a teacher and a librarian. And in a way, I archive lots of information and I research lots of information. So it did happen, but not in the way that I was thinking. When I was a teenager, I had this multi-dimensional, really wild sexual experience. And I didn't know what happened. And my partner had no idea what happened. And it happened to the both of us. And it was like we were merged bodies and on other planets. And it was so beautiful. And I was confused. And I lived in the Midwest. And we didn't even talk about sex.
Right.
Much less sacred sex or what happened. And so I started to ask around and I started to research. And in the mid-'80s in Minnesota, researching meant looking in the card catalog and trying to find information. And there was a little bit of shame around this and what's happening. And there's no Google, there's nothing. So I finally found, and it was like a friend through a friend through a friend through a friend, found someone whose name is Margot Anand, and she taught Sky Dancer Tantra, and it was in Hawaii at the time. And she's still teaching. She's in her 80s and she's still teaching. She's the most extraordinary woman. And she wrote these books, and I just inhaled them. It was like someone wrote the words for what I was searching, and someone wrote the words that addressed what it was that happened. And so if you can imagine, a very precocious 17-year-old girl who likes to spin in circles to the Grateful Dead on the weekends, just devouring this. And I didn't have anyone to talk to about it. And there was kind of an element of shame. Like I'm reading these books about sex and and what's happening to me. And at the same time, it was magic. It made so much sense. And the more that I would practice with myself, and I would practice with my partner, and the breath work and aligning the chakras, and the chakras made sense. And my intuition just really took off. And so I started offering intuitive readings, and so then I tried to be normal. I went to college and tried to be normal, and that didn't work.
I tried to be normal.
When did your intuition spark?
Mine actually about 5 years ago. I tapped straight into it. It'd been there.
That's
in my teenage years, I kind of was like you, the great, kind of get into the hippie stuff, a little bit more in the goth area. But yeah, it just really it started. I think I was very intuitive as I was born into. But then I blocked it all out. Tried to be normal like everyone else.
Right.
And then it just, when, I'm not normal, and I'm okay with that.
Now it's okay. Now I think there may be a difference. Like the kids now, or the young people now, there's more permission to be different and to be the misfits that we were at the time. Because I really tried to fit myself into something that fit. And then there were all sorts of things that happened because I never was normal. So I, issues with food and drinking and because I couldn't fit into that peg. And it took me a long time to finally accept it. So then I met someone, 15 years later. And he was taking Tantra courses. And so we started taking them together. And it was wonderful. And so then I had like a practical use for, but then also a teacher telling me, not just reading a book, do this and do this and do this. And we started to have these wild experiences of deities, and it became really beautiful. The relationship was really beautiful. It was very powerful. So then we started to teach, and then we taught, and that was very powerful. But it was like at the front of the room to many people. And when we split up, a part of me thought, okay, well, I can't do that anymore.
Mm.
So I stopped and was working with people one-on-one, doing a lot of intuitive readings. But it was always something for me that I just held sacred, but I didn't share very much. And let's see, about 18 months ago, I moved to Greece, and I was talking to a woman, and she said what she does is teaching sexuality. And there was just this, all of a sudden, I just had permission. I had permission to do the thing that is my heart, that is my passion. And I've done the online stuff. I've done the courses. I taught all the things. I did all the launches, and it was unfulfilling. So I don't work online. I work in person with people who come to Greece, and that is it. And it is magic.
I love it. I can when you said it's magic, I've literally felt how magic the feeling behind that. That is very fascinating. So it sounds like you went through your life trying to be in this little box. You're a little bit different than, and everyone's different, but you knew that you weren't supposed to be in the little box. And so when you came out of it, learned this new concept and just kind of broke free in this feminine spirit of yours, your intuitive started to rise up. And then you started to, after breakup, it's like you almost shut it down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But then again,
It was like I would find it.
you're standing in that power again of your intuitive power with that. And that's such a beautiful place to be, because I feel like a lot of times we'll go through lives and we're like, that was just a part of myself at that one point in time. And I call BS on that for people that's really our true identities and our true beings. Is you try to get back into the box, but once we come out of that box, it's like we can't quite get back into the box the same way it was before, because we're not supposed to be in there.
Yes. And that it wasn't the perfect time for the perfect expression. Because I think I had plenty of things to deal with and work through. And I don't think I was my authentic self. I don't think I knew myself enough. I still was putting some kind of attention on relationship where I could only express myself that way, sexually feminine, powerful and feminine power, while under the umbrella of a relationship. And so then the work after that, there's lots of work after that, and it was relationships and recovery and all sorts of, but it was more and more and more to permission. Like that's the heart chakra is really permission to be myself, permission to be weird and teach and talk about sex and have people react however they're going to react about that. And the more and more permission that I have for that, the more and more permission that I have for everybody else. And then more for everybody else. It's just the magic starts to flow. That I think it's been a process of becoming, and it feels really good.
When we think about the heart chakra, it's our giving and receiving in. So that makes complete sense to me for, our sexuality, for love, I mean, sexual love, whatever you want to combine it to, if we're giving, the more we're giving ourselves permission, the more we're going to give permission for others to be their true authentic selves too. So that's such a great point. And thanks for bringing that up. Yeah. So tell us more about how the chakras line up with the act of sex.
Yum. Well, so we focus just on the first 7, right? But there's 144 chakras all over, and secondary chakras and the palm of our hand and our elbows and behind our knees and the bottom of our feet, and places that are fun to kiss and take care of and caress. Those are all secondary chakras, and that's no accident. So the first 7 chakras, the base chakra is at the at the bottom of the spine, and that is the root. That's survival. So when survival gets contracted for us sexually, we can shut down. And then what happens above that, also, we're not going to feel sensual. We're not going to feel emotive. We're not going to feel creative if our survival is contracted. Then the second chakra is creativity, emotions, sensuality, and sexuality. So our access to everything, creativity, emotions, sensuality, and sexuality, that perfect little box, that's in the second chakra. So if we want to feel creative, if we want to connect to our intuition, if we want a more sensual experience, that's in the second chakra. And they're all connected too, right? So in Tantra, we say the second and the fifth are connected, and the first and the sixth are connected. So that's one of the ways that moving energy is a lot about being like opening the throat. So expressing oneself, saying how much I like that, I enjoy that, more of that, harder pressure, less pressure. Being able to communicate what it is that we enjoy about something and also what it is that we don't enjoy about something, and also expressing ourselves, moans and sighs and things that opens up the fifth chakra. So the second and the fifth then start to spin. You can see like the fifth is here and the second is just below our belly button, and they start to spin. And then the first and the sixth are connected. So the first and the sixth, the first is survival. We start to feel okay. We feel safe. We feel that we're taken care of. We feel safe in the encounter. We feel safe with our partner, that our partner is going to take care of us, that we're going to take care of our partner, that we're going to have a good time, that it's going to be an adventure, that if some funny sounds happen or we elbow each other's heads, then it's okay and we're not it's going to be weird. So then what happens is then the intuition starts to peak. And this is really the sign of enlightenment, was when the energy rises up the spine from the first chakra all the way up to the sixth chakra. And we can have these really beautiful multidimensional experiences. Enlightenment is then when it stays there, when the energy actually stays there. So those two start to spin together. So here we go. We've got the second and the fifth, and the first and the sixth, and then the fourth and the third. So third is purpose, power, and confidence. Purpose, power, and confidence starts to connect with giving and receiving permission. So those two are spinning. And then the whole thing starts to spin. So if you can imagine a couple who is connected, they're in union, and gender doesn't matter. It's energy. It doesn't matter. That it starts to spin in between the two. So we've got the first, sixth, the third, the right, all of those spinning, and then the energy actually goes down from one and then up into the other to the third eye, and then down and then up and then down. Oh, it's really delicious.
That is amazing. I've never had it explained. I'm very semi-familiar with how through sex or energy work, not like manifestation happens, but that makes a lot of sense how the energies go up through and then we're connecting to each other. And so it's like the whole manifestation, when you're trying to manifest something, I heard some of the best times is like orgasmically, or when you're in the middle of sex, that energy just brings up just such an awakening with your intuitive power. So that is beautiful. Yeah. So tell us some more about you do the somatic healing in different ways. How does that help with kind of bringing out this, I'm going to call sexual energy, which to me, that's what Tantra is the sexual energy behind it. Yeah.
Yes. Well, sexual energy is creative energy, and the creative, like how to inspire the creative spark, and how is it that we are aware of our surroundings? I'm just looking around my little apartment in Greece. How are we aware of surroundings? What is around us that we can actually connect to? And before we even get to sex, is just the senses. What is it? I have this cup of tea. So what about the smells of the tea and the taste of the tea? And this mug is handmade by someone that I adore. How, those kinds of, it's not just about slowing down and being present, but really being able to activate the senses. I have smells. I'm very scent oriented. So I have smells that I love, that are in the apartment of different flowers and smells and simmer pots of cinnamon and spices happening. Textures are very important. So what kind of textures, what kind of lingerie, great wool, what is it that we're wearing that we have near us? I have my dog with me, and she is snuggled up right now in this really delicious fuzzy blanket that we found. So how can we have, while life is happening around us, while busy is happening around us, as many little things that will have us just stop for a moment, just for a moment, and connect into the body. And one of my favorite practices about this is smelling food.
Tell us more about that.
So your next meal, do you say a blessing, or what happens when you're done, you plate the food, you sit down, or the food comes, and then what do you do?
I typically eat. I've not been very mindful. Being honest with my listeners, when you,
Yes.
but not been very, I do preach that to be very grateful and to bless the food and as it goes into your body, because I do a true believer in that. So that's what I should be doing. But do I do that? No, I'm typically shoving it down my throat.
Okay. Here's a suggestion is take just 3 seconds, and look at the food, acknowledge the food, and smell the food. And it's just 1, 2, 3, and then you can eat. And just a reminder, here we are, we're in this body, spiritual being having a physical experience, and a way to connect into the body. So the issues that come up and the problems that we have sexually have a lot to do with being very much in the head, the patterns that we have, the patterns that we pick up about relationship, the patterns that we pick up about our own sexuality, the patterns we pick up about shame and issues that we've had, or body image issues. It's about turning the focus to ourselves rather than getting into the body. So turning the focus to ourselves then makes us self-conscious, and it's also selfish focused, but we all do it. Just take 3 seconds and just smell the food. And that will change your life. If you can remember to do that for 30 days, you'll start to notice more things. You'll start to notice maybe the texture of the wall, or this lovely lamp that I have next to me. I live in an artist's home, so I have lots of original art around me. And I've had art around me, but never this much. And I'm really aware of how much it contributes to my nervous system. Having real original art of some of the people I know, most of them I don't, but I can still feel the difference. Music. What kind of music? What kind of music is soothing? What kind of music activates something? If we slow everything down, so Tantra means to weave or to expand. So a tantric approach to life isn't just about sex and lasting a really long time. It's about weaving, like weaving the breath, weaving the bodies, weaving our experiences, weaving the senses, weaving energy. And as we do that, our intuition becomes stronger and stronger and stronger. And it's very sovereign.
It sounds like it's staying in flow.
Yes.
It's basically Tantra to me is staying in flow. And that's love that you mentioned that, because I was at dinner with some friends. They're like, "What's your word of the year?" And I really thought about it. I hadn't really shared with anyone, but it's flow. It's to stay into flow of everything in my life, and things that pull me out of flow to quickly come back into flow, which is alignment to me. So it's such a fascinating thing that basically what you're saying is to how let everything just kind of weave in together, and you start to notice the way things weave in, and then you start to see the beauty that's within everything and in the world.
Yes, I've been looking into neuroarchitecture. I'm very interested in how architecture soothes the nervous system or then upsets the nervous system, and what's happening with the circles, so I walk through this, I'm in a sacred city in Greece, and walk through and looking for the circles and the angles, and it's a lot of magic and a lot of things that are planned for our benefit, our nervous system benefit, our brain benefit. How has it been? So it's the middle of January, we're recording. How's it been with the word flow, your word flow?
The word flow has been going really well for me. I really kind of started that at the end of last year. I was like, there's some things that completely pulled me out of alignment of who I am and going down different paths, mostly career wise, that I didn't need to be going back down. And so I quickly pushed myself back in. And it took me about 3 weeks to get back into flow. And that's a long time to get back. And that's how far out I had gotten just over the course of like going down a different path. So I made the decision 2025 is I'm going to stick with whatever's in flow with my intuition. And so that's how I base it. If it's intuitively and aligned with what my purpose and what I'm supposed to be doing, I'm doing. Everything else is going to go away. And so I've had stressful situations. Our 2025 is I have a really good feeling and I have a good mindset. I'm like 20 is going to be an amazing year. But there are things that are happening that are just kind of starting to pull energetic that are starting to pull at everyone. And so everybody's kind of starting off with some people are starting off with a rocky 2025. And staying in flow has allowed me to not allow that to happen to me. Whereas I'm seeing through posting social media, through friends, through other things, you're like, it's just been a crazy year already. And we're recording this on the 15th of January, by the way, listeners. So yeah, I mean, it's really allowed me to just kind of be able to stay focused and stay grounded by staying in that flow state. And so I think it's super, super important to be able to do that.
Yeah, very much. Very much.
So for listeners, what are some tips for people? Because I know that they're looking at, Tantra's obviously, we kind of talked about a little bit different, how it's not just about sexual activity or sex. What are some ways that people can, if they want to incorporate this into their bedroom, to get out of kind of ruts? Because I know a lot of people kind of get into ruts where it's just like the same thing over and over again. You're almost doing a task to have an ending pleasure, and then you're done. And so I know, especially, we get into I'm in my 40s. We get into your 30s for your kids. You have and on above, it starts to get into that can tend to be your sex life. If you've been your partner for a while. So what are some things people can do to get that Tantra flow back in?
Well, let's slow it down, because I think over time, what happens is we know what works, and we're going to do those things that work, that thing that works for the partner and that thing that works for you. And then my turn, your turn, and then we're done. Right. And sometimes with time that's necessary. But what if we slow it down and stretch it out? And the woman's brain is just such a beautiful thing.
It is.
What if foreplay were to start a few days before? See, foreplay really starts 24 hours before. There was this article years ago. Men's Health did an article on the women's orgasm, and they spent a lot of money to study the women's orgasm. And so these women were in MRI machines, and they were stimulated to orgasms. And it was women who were inorgasmic or sometimes orgasmic, and then the women who were all orgasmic. So it's a really interesting number. 50% of women are inorgasmic, and of the remaining 50, sometimes, right? And then about 25% is pretty reliable, pretty every time. So why is that? What happens? So after a very long time and a lot of money that was spent, a few things were discovered. One is her feet need to be warm. If her feet are cold, it's not going to happen. And then two is if the amygdala is fired up at all. So kids, homework, dog throwing up, feeling criticized. And the woman's amygdala has 3 times the lining that the male's does. And so any little thing could then set her off, right? We can see in the periphery of what is going on at all times, right? We can take something, and if it's been a tough day, we can take it personally. And then 3 days from now, we are not going to have an orgasm. So knowing this going in and knowing this about the partner, then we can make the 3 days, 4 days, 5 days before as delicious as possible. How to have her feel taken care of and safe. And that amygdala, the fear center of the brain, is not fired off. Or if it is, then it's soothed to the point where she feels okay. And this is preparation. It's not just sexting, but sexting could be a part of it. How about some caressing before? How about just as you're passing through in the hallway, just touches and slowing the energy down? I think one thing a lot of the women that I talk to is they feel frustrated and resentful and then are expected to have sex. And if we just slow it down a little bit. Let's warm it up. I think appointment sex, I'm a big fan of appointment sex. Set the date and then let's get ready for it, right? All the senses, all the things. How do we activate all the things to have her nervous system soften?
Yeah, that makes so much sense, because if we're in the middle of trying to perform, as I guess you would call it, but we got so many things going through our minds. We got to do this in the house, but we got work business, we got business stuff, we got all this multiple things going on. But if we can't, it's almost like a constant, not a concentration, but it's, again, it's the focus, aware, the mindfulness that comes to it. So I love the fact before you talked about how, the feelings of how things feel. How does it smell? So you're really getting into your senses as opposed to your logical mind. It's like, here, get this done. And we put all these pressure on ourselves to perform and it to be this magical experience every single time. When in reality, that's not going to happen if we don't start to take care of ourselves and take care of our minds, bodies, and spirits, as you kind of talked about.
Yes. Yes. And the preparation of the goddess. So the focus really is on the feminine, on taking care of the feminine, arousing the feminine, worshiping the feminine, worshiping the yoni. So the yoni, can I say
Absolutely.
body parts and things? Okay. The yoni is the vagina. So worshiping the yoni. What is that going to take? So we know the things that work, but maybe things have changed. Maybe what is appealing to us as our bodies change, as we get older, maybe that's shifting. What is it that we want? The questions of just, is this okay versus more pressure or less pressure? Is this okay? Do you like this? Versus, do you want me to make bigger circles or smaller circles? What is it that will have her feel worshipped? And I say her meaning the feminine energy, which has nothing to do with gender. So the feminine energy. And then what is it that will connect? So the feminine feels open and aroused when she's safe. And the safer she feels, the freakier she gets.
That makes sense.
So if she feels safe and not criticized and taken care of, and that everything is, things are okay, then the more experimental, frisky she will be. But during those days, how about just 3 minutes of eye gazing at the end of the day as a way to connect?
And it's so funny. Doing exercises I've done recently in some retreats I went, like just sitting and staring into people's eyes feels so uncomfortable. But once you get past that 30 seconds of uncomfortableness, you start to really see that person. And it becomes such a beautiful emotional standpoint thing of just staring at someone's eyes and getting to see, you're staring into their soul in certain ways and seeing the beauty that's within them. So
there's a compassion that happens when we can see their humanity, their beauty, their heart, their soul, their pain. We can see their pain. And then here's another one. So we can do eye gazing. So it's just to gaze at each other's eyes. And then there's breathing each other's breath. As I exhale to my partner, he inhales. And as he exhales, I inhale. And we can be sitting in Yab Yang, which means my legs are around his waist. Or we could be kneeling. Sometimes that's uncomfortable. Sometimes we could kneel, or we'd just be standing in the hallway and just breathe each other's breath. I think that's a really sacred moment.
love that. I love it. Listeners, go do that. If you have a partner, if not, do it to you can almost breathe your own breath in, I guess, through the mirror.
Oh, yeah. Yes, you can do it in the mirror, Or if you desire a partner, have the version of you that has the partner that you desire, connect to that timeline. So it's all happening. It's all happening all at once, and all the timelines are happening all at once. So connect to that version, and he or she is there. So then have that experience that has a tendency to bring them in. And if you don't desire a partner, in the mirror.
Love yourself. It's the most important person you're going to love anyway, so go love yourself.
Yes.
Well, this has been so fascinating. Is there anything else you want to leave our listeners with?
Well, let's see. Homework. I would try the senses. So smell your food. Smell your food for a month and see what happens. And then with a partner, eye gazing. Taking a few days before appointment sex, for sure. Make appointment sex, and then take a few days before and get ready. Play with, flirt, and have fun with preparing for those days, and then breathing each other's breath is really beautiful. And then, if you do want,
even more
one-on-one Greece.
Yes. So speaking of those who desire and want to work with you and come to Greece, what's the best way for them to contact you?
My website is mountain-tantra.com.
Okay.
And you can send me an email, or there's a link to set up a free call. And what we do is we create a whole retreat. So I work with women and men and couples. And I think my favorite is couples. And so we'll design the whole retreat. You come to Greece, we have the retreat, and then there's other things happening. Athens is a really extraordinary city.
I haven't made it there yet. That was supposed to be this year, but next year. We already have our plan.
Come.
But who knows?
Yes.
It's still at the very beginning of 2025, and yeah. So I'm definitely interested in coming for it. So I hope our listeners will reach out to you and set up a call to find out more information. So thank you, Megan, for joining us today and for sharing all of your amazing knowledge, all the techniques and tips to help us have the most amazing sexual and the most mindful experience life possible. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Alicia.